It's some hour of the night you're not proud of, and you're looking at a number on a screen. The balance, the rent, the thing you owe. And you're doing the maths again. The same maths you did yesterday, which changed nothing yesterday and will change nothing now. You're not solving anything. You're just running the fear in a loop. And underneath it, there's a promise you've quietly made yourself. When the number is big enough, I'll be able to breathe. 2,000 years ago, there was a man who could not have identified with that less. He owned nothing. He was, in the most literal legal sense, owned himself. And he is remembered as one of the freest human beings who ever lived. Quick note on where this sits. This is a channel about one climb, one rung per book. We asked how to get unstuck. We asked why you feel empty. We asked why you care what people think. We asked how to quiet the noise. We asked where your life is going while you're busy earning it. And last time, we asked how to find a path that's actually yours. Tonight's rung is the one that keeps people awake. How do you stop being afraid about money? The man is Epictetus. And you should know what he was, because it's the entire argument. He was born around 50 AD in Hierapolis, in what's now Turkey. Born a slave. Not fell on hard times. Property. His name isn't even a name. Epictetus roughly means acquired. He was, from birth, a thing that someone else owned. He ended up in Rome, owned by a man named Epictetus, who was himself a former slave who'd clawed his way up to being a secretary to the Emperor Nero. So, a slave, owned by an ex-slave, in the household of the most dangerous man on earth. And this man, who had no money, no property, no rights, no body he could call his own, who couldn't even walk properly, sat down and worked out the thing that we, with our balances and our savings and our freedom, still cannot get. He worked out where freedom actually comes from, and he was so sure of it that he never bothered to write it down. Everything we have of him was scribbled down by a student named Arian, who basically took lecture notes. One of those sets of notes is a tiny handbook, about 15 pages, called the Enchiridion. The word means close at hand, a manual, something you keep in your pocket like a knife. There's a story about Epictetus, and it's probably not true, and it's told about him for 2,000 years anyway, which tells you exactly what kind of man people believed he was. He was lame, walked with a limp his whole life, and the story goes that his master, in a temper, was twisting his leg. And Epictetus, calmly, not even angry, the way you'd mention a fact about the weather, said, "If you keep doing that, you're going to break it." The master kept going. The leg broke. And Epictetus said, in the same flat voice, "There, I told you it would break." Now, historians think that's a legend. Fine. But hold on to why the story stuck. It stuck because it dramatizes his one idea perfectly. This man had lost control of his body and had lost nothing of himself. Somebody else could break his leg. Nobody could make him panic about his leg. There was a line inside him, and everything outside that line, his body, his owner, his status, his safety, was, in a strange and specific sense, none of his business. Here's where it gets remarkable. While enslaved, Epictetus was allowed to study philosophy under a great Stoic teacher named Musonius Rufus. Sit with that. A slave going to philosophy class. And this is the lesson buried in it. And it's the one people miss when they picture Stoicism as a productivity hack for men with cold showers. Stoicism was not invented in comfort. It's not a hobby for people whose lives are already fine. It was worked out by a crippled slave in the house of a tyrant as a technology for staying sane and staying whole when the world can genuinely do whatever it likes to you. It is a survival tool, which is exactly why it works on your 3 a.m. balance. Nero eventually died. Badly. Epictetus was freed. And a freed slave started teaching in Rome. And then the Emperor Domitian, who didn't like philosophers, threw them all out of Italy. So Epictetus walked to a town called Nicopolis in Greece and opened a school, And he became famous, not for teaching. So here's his whole philosophy. He puts it in the very first line of the manual, because everything else is a footnote to it. In his own words, some things are in our control and others not. That's it. That's the rung. Everything you will ever encounter falls into one of two buckets, and almost all human misery comes from putting things in the wrong bucket. In bucket one, the things that are up to you, your judgments, what you decide something means, your desires, what you go after, your aversions, what you flee, your own actions. That's it. That's a short list. Notice what's on it. Nothing physical, nothing external, nothing anybody else can touch. It's all inside your own skull. In bucket two, everything else. Your body, your health, your reputation, whether people like you, whether you get the job, whether the economy holds, your property, your money, all of it. Bucket two. And Epictetus is brutal about the arithmetic here. If you take something in bucket two and treat it as though it's in bucket one, if you stake your peace on it, then you have hitched your entire inner life to a thing you don't steer. You will be anxious, because you should be anxious. You've bet your happiness on a coin flip that someone else is flipping. You'll blame people. You'll blame the gods. You'll feel like a victim, because in that arrangement, you literally are one. But if you want only what's in bucket one, if your peace rests only on things nobody can confiscate, then here's the wild claim. No one can hurt you. No one can compel you. You have no enemies, because there's nothing of yours anyone can take. He wasn't being poetic. He was a slave. He'd checked. And that's the lesson, and it's uncomfortable because the 3 a.m. maths lives entirely in bucket two. The number in the account is not up to you. It's the result of 1,000 things. The economy, your employer, luck, timing, other people's decisions. What's up to you is what you do tomorrow and what you decide the number means. That's the whole of your kingdom. It's smaller than you wanted. It's also completely, permanently yours. Now, if you're arguing with the screen, good, so did his students. Because the obvious objection is, no. Some things are just bad. Losing your job is bad. Being broke is bad. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. And Epictetus has an answer, and it's the second most famous line he ever said. In his own words, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. He points at death, the biggest thing on the list. Death, he says, isn't terrible. If it were terrible in itself, then Socrates would have found it terrible, and he didn't. He drank the poison making jokes. So the terror isn't in the dying. The terror is in the verdict we've attached to the dying. And that verdict, that's bucket one, that's ours. Run it on money and watch what happens. A number in an account is just a number. It's not shameful. It doesn't have an opinion about you. What's actually happening at 3 a.m. is that you've stacked meanings on top of it. That this number means you failed. That it means people will find out. That it means you're behind. That you're not a real adult. That you'll end up with nothing. None of that is in the number. All of that is stuff you put there. And the stuff you put there is precisely the stuff you're allowed to take back. And here's the lesson, and it's the practical heart of the book. Epictetus is not telling you money doesn't matter or that you shouldn't pay your rent. He's a hard-nosed man. Go earn. What he's saying is that the suffering and the problem are two different objects. The problem is arithmetic. It responds to actions. The suffering is a story. It responds to nothing because it's not trying to solve anything. It's just running. Most of us spend our nights fighting the story and calling it working on the problem. Separate them, and you'll notice something almost funny. The hours you spent afraid contributed exactly nothing to the number. So, what does a life look like when it's built entirely out of bucket one? It looks like his. In Nicopolis, Epictetus, now famous, now sought after, Students coming from across the empire, a man who could have been rich, lived in a small hut. Barely any furniture, a straw mat, an earthenware lamp. That's roughly the inventory. And he wasn't performing poverty. He simply had no use for the other stuff. He had run the numbers differently than we do. In his own words, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Look at what that sentence actually does. We think of wealth as a fraction with one lever. Get the top number, what you have, as big as possible. Epictetus points at the bottom of the fraction, wants, and he notes correctly that the bottom number is in bucket 1. It's yours. You can move it tonight. The top number you have to beg the world for, and the world may say no. And there's a story here that people have loved for 2 millennia. Epictetus once owned an iron lamp. A good one, worth something. Someone broke in and stole it. And his reaction was not rage, it was a kind of amusement. He replaced it with a cheap earthenware one. And what he said about the thief was this: "The thief paid far more for that lamp than I did. I lost an iron lamp. He became a thief." That's the whole worldview in one shrug. The thief took the thing in bucket 2 and paid with something out of bucket 1, the only thing that actually can't be replaced. What he became. Epictetus lost hardware. The thief lost himself. And the lesson: the man with nothing to steal is unrobbable. Not because he's clever, but because he has quietly moved everything he values to the one place where thieves, markets, bosses, and bad luck cannot reach. But you can feel the hole in this, right? Fine. A lamp. Who cares about a lamp? What about the things that actually matter? What about when you lose something you love? Epictetus does not flinch, and this is either the coldest thing in the book or the warmest, depending on the day you're having. In his own words, never say of anything, "I have lost it," but say, "I have given it back." And he applies it to everything without blinking. Your farm was taken, given back. Your money's gone, given back. And then, and people always stop breathing at this line, "Is your child dead?" Given back. Now that lands like a slap. But look at what he's actually claiming. He's saying, you never owned any of it. Not the money, not the house, not the people. It was all on loan, from the start, on terms nobody showed you, and the loan was always going to be called. The grief is real. He's not banning grief. What he's removing is the extra thing we bolt on top. The sense of theft. The outrage. The "this shouldn't have happened to me." Because that sense of theft assumes ownership you never had. He has an image for it that makes it bearable. Life, he says, is like a voyage. The ship puts in at a harbor, and you go ashore for water, and along the way you might pick up a shell or a little plant. Lovely. Enjoy it. But your attention has to stay half on the ship, because the captain may call at any moment, and when he calls you, drop the shells and you run. And if you're old, you stay nearer the ship the whole time. The shells are yours to enjoy. They are not yours to keep. Nothing is. And the lesson? The fear of losing money is underneath, the fear that you are the kind of thing that can be diminished. Epictetus's answer is that the part of you that can be diminished was never you. You are the one holding the shells. You are not the shells. All right. So if the money isn't yours and the outcomes aren't yours, what exactly are you supposed to do all day? Sit in a hut and want nothing? No. And this is where people get Epictetus badly wrong. He's not passive. He's the opposite. He's ferociously demanding. He just moved the target. His image is theater. You are an actor, he says, in a play. And here's the thing. You don't choose the play, and you don't choose your part. Someone else does the casting. Your part might be a rich man. It might be a poor man. It might be a cripple or a slave or a ruler. Your job, your only job, the entire performance review, is to play well the part you are given. Choosing the part is not your business. playing it well is entirely your business. So the question stops being, why did I get this role? The debt, the family, the country, the body, the decade you were born into, and becomes the only question that was ever actually available. Given this, what does excellent look like today? And he gives you a tool for the hard days, and it's beautifully practical. Everything, he says, has two handles. One you can carry it by, and one you can't. Your brother wrongs you. Grab that by the handle of, he wronged me, this is an outrage. That handle you cannot lift. It just burns your hands. Grab the same event by the handle of, he is my brother, we grew up together. And suddenly, the thing is liftable. Same event. Two handles. The event doesn't care which one you take. You do. The lesson: you are not being asked to feel good about your circumstances. You're being asked to notice that you're always holding something by one of two handles, and that the choice of handle, bucket one, has been yours the entire time you've been telling yourself you had no choice. So here's the ending, and it's the reason this man is on the shelf. Epictetus died around 135 AD. An old man in Greece, still poor. Straw mat, earthenware lamp. And by then, he was one of the most respected human beings in the Roman world. Emperors' sons were sent to hear him. And decades later, the most powerful man alive, Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, master of the known world, would sit alone at night writing private notes to himself about how to be a decent person, and would quote again and again a dead, crippled ex-slave. That's the scoreboard. Rome's most powerful man taking instruction from Rome's least powerful man on the subject of freedom. In his own words, no man is free who is not master of himself. So what changes if you take him seriously? Not your balance. He is spectacularly unhelpful about your balance. What changes is what the number is allowed to do to you. You still work, you still earn, still budget, still pay the rent. The arithmetic is real, and he'd tell you to go handle it. What stops is the tax, the 3 a.m. tax, the loop, the rehearsing, the low permanent hum of a man waiting for a number to give him permission to breathe. He's telling you the permission was never in the number. That's why the number never gave it, no matter how big it got. You've met people with more than you who are more afraid than you. That's 7. 7 questions, 7 books, same shelf. How to get unstuck. Why you feel empty. Why you care what they think. How to quiet the noise. Where your life is going. How to find your own path. And tonight, how to stop being afraid about money. And the answer came from a man who had no money at all, which is either a cosmic joke or the entire point. Your first step, and it's small enough for tonight. Next time the loop starts, take the thing you're afraid of and physically sort it into the 2 buckets. Out loud. The rent is due. Bucket 2, not up to me, but there's an action, and I'll do the action. I am a failure. That's not a fact. That's a verdict I wrote, and I'm allowed to withdraw it. Do that once and you'll feel the loop lose its grip, because a loop needs the 2 buckets mixed to run. And read the actual thing. It's the Enchiridion. It's about 15 pages. You can read it tonight in less time than you'll spend worrying. A slave wrote a manual for being free. This was the story. The book is the manual. Told, not taught. Same climb. Next rung.